All right, good afternoon. My name is Heather Doucette, and I am the Marketing and Event Coordinator here at NetElixir. I'm super excited to be here today as we introduce AI and building a successful search marketing campaign to target your high-value online shoppers. AI is revolutionizing paid search, and trust me, each day it is growing in importance. These dynamic changes are impacting the entire industry, and leading marketers and retailers are adapting to these changes in order to stay competitive. NetElixir is offering throughout the month 4 webinars that will help you stay current with the developments in AI. Let me tell you about the webinars we'll be hosting this month, which are all centered around modern search. Today, we'll be introducing AI and audience. Tomorrow, we'll be covering the fundamentals of smart bidding, measurement, and creative excellence. NetElixir will be attending the Google Marketing Live event in San Francisco on May 14th. There, we are going to capture new customer insights and the latest digital marketing products Google is offering. On May 17th, we'll be hosting a webinar to share the key points presented at the Google event. To end the Modern Search month, we'll be joined by our premier partners at Bing to share with you the most important AI insights. For those of you not familiar with NetElixir, our company has always been able to help retailers online find and acquire new customers. We go beyond looking at the data. We see the value in every click and the customer behind that click. The idea of humanizing every click is what we believe really separates us from the crowd, and it allows our clients to position and target more strategically. Since it is truly important to us, we have made it our mission to help companies succeed online by humanizing every click. Here at NetElixir, we are comprised of over 130 fanatically analytical global search marketers, dedicated to helping retailers find and acquire new customers online. Since 2004, our data-intensive approach and deep retail expertise have delivered success for hundreds of brands in a highly competitive marketplace. We have built powerful relationships with partners like UPS, Google, Bing, and BrightEdge, and we have connected over 400 retail clients to their customers around the world. It is our job to make sure that your brand owns the search bar, and we allow you to take ownership through the services we provide, which are paid search, organic search, paid social, web analytics consulting, CRO, Amazon ads, and e-commerce and tech development services. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to today's speaker and the man who started it all, Udayan Bose. Udayan is the founder and CEO of NetElixir. Since 2004, he has been committed to helping digital marketers attract, acquire, and engage with their customers more effectively. His determination and exclusive focus on the online retail industry has helped NetElixir become the de facto search marketing expert in the retail space. Prior to NetElixir, Udayan was the Director of Business Development at Party Gaming. There, he built a business unit, PartyBingo.com, from scratch, which went on to become a major revenue generator for the company. And today, he is a guest lecturer at several universities and trade show events. So before we begin, as a reminder, if you have any questions throughout our webinar, please do not hesitate to drop your questions in our chat box. We'll answer all questions at the end of our presentation. All right, everyone, please welcome me and joining Udayan Bose.
Thank you very much, Heather. Thanks a lot for the introduction. I mean, this presentation is quite unique, primarily because over the last 18 months or so, we have seen that the entire SEM world, or the paid search advertising world, has really changed quite dramatically. But before I sort of just go ahead and share the stuff, I mean, I just wanted to ensure that everyone is able to see the screen and hear us okay, because we have had some complaints and some challenges. If you can just sort of kindly press on the question box. I mean, if are we audible enough? I mean, I see Dean, David, you guys are perfect. Great, thank you. Thank you very much. So just sort of starting off and going into as to what Heather was mentioning, it has been a time of change. It has been a fascinating time of change, and any such times, there are new opportunities which are bound to really sort of arise. So I'll just start with a couple of facts, which hopefully helps you to understand the magnitude of change which the paid search world or the search advertising world has been going through. The first fact is 60% plus of our clients' paid search revenue now comes from modern search campaigns. When I say modern search campaigns, I'm referring specifically to the new AI modules which Google has driven, 60% plus. 18 months back, this percentage was less than 3%. So when something grows from 3% to 60%, you know that's massive change happening right there. The second fact which I would share is, I'll sort of first quote maybe a Google slide as well. So overall, companies who have embraced or adapted modern search modules, they are seeing or realizing a 27% increase in conversion volume. By combining the power of audience, automation, and attribution, they are getting this lift, and this is across the board for Google. So we decided to test as to what has been the lift for our clients that have really embraced the modern search modules when it comes to paid search. And that percentage leads me to the fact number 2. For our clients, that increase has been, believe it or not, 40% plus. The conversion volume has really gone through the roof. So based on both these two insights or facts that I shared, one is 60% plus of the overall paid search revenue really coming from the modern search modules, as well as the overall lift in terms of the revenue and the overall performance upwards of 40% really makes it almost imperative that we sort of share some of the best practices, some of the new stuff which has been going on in the world. And this is really the world of modern search. When we say modern search, let me classify as to what exactly are we referring to. We have broken down modern search into 4 core modules. The first one is creative excellence. So running a set of smarter ad copies, and tomorrow my colleague and our director of paid media, Manish, would be mentioning and discussing more about the creative excellence part, whereby you just upload a certain number of ad copies, headlines, description, and Google figures out as to what is the best combination for every particular audience segment. The second one has to do with automation, which is we're talking about things like smart bidding. So rather than manually changing the bids or using a rule-based tool to change the bid, Google says that we have access to a lot of signals. We'll change these bids for you. You just sort of set certain overall goals that you are going to reach. So that is what really has made smart bidding popular. And so also has it made the dynamic search ads very popular as well, where directly using the data feed with the retailer is sharing with Google, they're able to populate or generate the ads directly. The third component or the third module is on measurement, where it is primarily under the data-driven attribution. Very clearly, the last click attribution may not really reflect the overall customer journey and really give weightage appropriately to the right channel. And that's where the data-driven attribution has become an important part of the modern search. And last but not the least, which is going to be a focus of my presentation today, is about the audience segmentation and targeting. So, but before I really jump into all of these, let me try to do a little bit of a contextual and presenting a bit of a structure or a framework, which will hopefully help you understand as to where AI modules such as modern search modules really sort of fit in. But to do that, let me go back to something as fundamental as the definition of work. And I have taken this diagram for this fantastic book, which I would highly recommend anyone who is interested in the world of AI to read, specifically from the business perspective. It's not really a technical book called Prediction Machines, which has been written by 3 professors from the University of Toronto. They have broken down every task, or let us say any task that we do, can be broken down into the following components. For every task, you are doing that task because you really want to achieve a certain outcome or a goal. There is an input for the task. You collect all the information to go ahead and do a task. And then the core component is broken down into 3. So you are predicting as to the changes that you are making as to how would those changes interplay to produce the optimal outcome or the desired outcome. You're also making judgments. What path should we choose? At what point in time should we choose one path? And that's where it is entirely based on your experience. Plus, there is a lot of human intuition and overall value as well. And then as you really carry out those actions, which you are doing, you track the outcome, and then there is a classic feedback loop, almost like a learning loop, which keeps on, which really helps you as a human being to do that task better and better and better, right? Remember that 10,000 hour rule, that if you sort of keep on doing something on a regular basis for 10,000 hours, you can really achieve mastery on this. Then there is a fantastic book again called Flow, where they bring in the concept of deliberate practice. By putting the purpose in the practice, you can really achieve mastery in anything that you want after 10,000 hours being invested in that. And that's where you're sort of learning constantly. The human being is sort of learning to sort of becoming more proficient in that particular area. Now, for a moment, let us just consider this process of task and just consider just one small but fundamental component called decision making. Now, any decision that you are taking, let us say as search marketing agency, which has been around for 15 plus years now, we have over 40 search analysts who are working day in and day out, only focusing on just a handful of things. What are the right moves? What are the right choices to make? What are the keywords to do? What are the bids to do, etc., etc. So in any cases, they are making choices. They are making judgments. They are making a strategic judgment that this is the direction that we should sort of move forward to. So that judgment component is something which makes it unique. Suppose you take strategy 1, or let us say path 1. How does it really compare with path 2 and path 3? So it's basically a question of trade-offs. What path should I take? And that's where the human judgment component comes in. But with every path, there is a set of actions which are fairly repetitive in nature. And these are the actions which you are sort of just checking different variables, probably different sets of ad copies are getting tested, and you're finding out the results for that. You're changing different keyword mixes. You're sort of going ahead and changing the bids probably multiple times and so on. All of these are fairly repetitive activities, but they need to be done so that you are able to, rather than only sort of setting up a path and not doing anything about it, you can actually have to do something, find out whether it is working or not. Once you are able to take out an action and sort of map the outcome, and then sort of that process is learning. What AI does, AI with all the developments, whether you talk about AI as a self-driving car, whether you talk about AI in terms of probably a warehouse robot who's sort of going ahead and segmenting, picking stuff and putting it on the shelf, or even finding out as to what stuff is missing from the shelf, or whether you talk about AI making those changes which are fairly repetitive in nature in terms of the number of bid changes, which earlier used to be done by rule-based algorithm or portfolio algorithm, or which probably are finding out the different audience sets, demographic audience sets, which would be fit for your campaign. Stuff which would have mechanically done, that is the part which AI is able to do substantially better than human beings. And why is it so? Why does AI, or why does an evolved AI module is able to provide prediction value much higher than human beings? Primarily because for anything to act, just consider this first part, which is the input part. So input is a bunch of data. You are getting a tons of data. And at any point in time, the human being is probably tweaking around or experimenting or testing maybe about 3, 4, 5, 10 pieces of data signals as such. On the other hand, an evolved AI technology, or I would say more appropriately, an evolved prediction machine is able to test out literally hundreds of, in certain cases, up to 150 to 200 different signals to do that prediction a lot more efficiently. Now, these are repetitive jobs which are getting sort of done. So effectively, what does it really mean in terms of search marketing? Earlier, an action resulted because you were able to take a judgment, you were able to do a set of tasks, which was more of the prediction, and then you sort of learned as a process. In this, the judgment and learning is something which the human beings can spend a lot more time while giving off those repetitive tasks to the prediction machines, which is at the center. And that's a key component for anyone to understand when you talk about anything on AI. So that is a framework I really wanted to set. And effectively, all this is possible because, as we all know, we are into a massive data revolution. The quality as well as the quantity of data that we are able to get, as it is sort of classified, let us say, as big data, right? You have the variety of data, different disparate data. You have the velocity of data, what is the amount of time, the volume for a certain time. And then you obviously have the overall volume of data as well. That is massive that Google has. And Google's algorithms are sort of taking all these things. So do those repetitive tasks better than probably a human being can do. But there is one thing which I really have to sort of caution all of you on, which is there is no substitute and no foreseeable substitute in terms of human judgment. When I talk about human judgment, you can the algorithm or the robot, which is literally the search marketing agency or our best friend at this point in time, we have to train the robot or we have to drive the robot in a certain path. Because if you don't really strategically lead the robot to a certain path, and the robot can really do a set of activities on a path which can really lead to nowhere, right? So it becomes quite a fruitless, basically useless sort of an overall deployment of AI because you didn't really have the expertise to lead it down a particular path. So that's where the human judgment, which has been built essentially through a simple thing, experience, right? And then secondly, there is a tremendous value in what is called the intuition as well, which has been built as a combination of experience and intuition, becomes invaluable. Because if there are 50 different paths which are to be selected, human beings can really, just based on the experience and intuition, guide, why don't you take path number 5? Why don't you take path number 35? And so on and so forth. And then apply the machine's predictive capability on that so as to be able to do those tasks a lot more efficiently. There is one other opportunity which this unique division of almost like the task or the labor really sort of provides. The unique opportunity here is expansion. In many cases, just because as human beings we sort of simultaneously are used to this process of making predictions, making judgments, making predictions, making judgments, we in many cases did not even have the time to spend to really make those acute number of judgments, which expands the overall spectrum, right? So we were always focusing on, let us say, X percentage, where X percentage definitely was not 100%, and that really limited the scope. Now, with machines taking care of the repetitive jobs or the predictive jobs, suddenly you have time to give machine or train machine different intuitive challenges or experience-led challenges, which are almost like the judgmental challenges, which really enables you to expand the overall campaign structure significantly. So, and as a result of which, the retailer has suddenly, the same advertiser has many more opportunities to overall grow their campaign part. Because suddenly the addressable universe that you are looking at expands multiple fold, in certain cases exponentially. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to emphasize or share as to the importance of judgment, as well as the importance of predictive machines, as well as through a certain example. And then I'll sort of try to share a case study of one of our dear clients, Sarka Lighting, who we have been working for more than 3.5 years now. And in fact, I sort of presented this case study along with their COO, Al Bassin, just about 2 weeks back at the Cohere One conference as well, which will really help you realize two things. One, the importance of judgment in taking a particular path so as to minimize the risk and maximize the overall desired output. At the same time, I'll also show as to, if done right, as to what is the impact it can have, as well as if done wrong, what is the negative impact it can have as well. Talking of the negative impact, but before we get into this, let me again try to clarify as to, now we have a framework, hopefully, of dividing a task. We have a framework, hopefully based on which we can better understand AI. So again, let me repeat some of these pieces. One, any AI tool at this point in time is more of a prediction machine, primarily because they are able to do the number of repetitive tasks based on the number of signals that they do better than human beings. Right? It started with there are a lot of chess games. There was a Go game which was there, etc., and there is a lot of work which is going on as the algorithm learns constantly over time. But to do that, the second part, which I would think is the number one value, leading down a path comes through judgment, and there is no replacement now or in the foreseeable future in terms of human judgment, which has been built as a result of experience, expertise, and intuition. So that's the path, if you really put the path. So think of AI as someone who is a collaborator for you, who can really take care of those repetitive tasks and help you think of other paths or other strategies to maximize your overall growth potential. So these are the four. I did not really get deep into any one of them, focus more on the audience side as such, which is the dynamic search ads. And then we have the detailed demographic segmentation and dynamic remarketing and prospecting, and then detailed audience target. I'll not really get too detailed into each one of them and explain, because there is a lot of material there. In fact, we have NetElixir has produced an audience orange paper or an audience best practices checklist. You can download that using our modern search link from our website as well. So that's something that you can do yourself. And then tomorrow, my colleague, as I mentioned, Manish Mohan, would be talking about automation, creative excellence, and the measurement part, and I'll explain. But our theme for both these days essentially would be to share with you some of the best practices. When we say best practices, we have found out a list of things through rapid testing and constant testing over the last about 18 to 24 months that really would help you improve your judgment as a human being and really lead the AI in the right direction. Very important. Improve your judgment and lead the AI to the right direction. Because if you don't lead it to the right direction, this is what happens. So this slide that I am sharing with you, this is actually for a large consumer electronic retailer client that we have. And this is when in Q2 2018. When we started off effectively AI, we sort of did a bit of a test and we tried to compare it with our pre-AI module. In this case, we are talking about smart bidding, the pre-smart bidding days. And what we saw in a span of about 3 weeks or so, the impressions had dropped by 36%, but even more concerning, that the conversions came down by 32% and the revenue came down by 44%. Now, this is a massive, massive overall revenue search advertiser as such. And understandably, a minus 44% drop is huge in terms of the absolute dollar number. Why did this happen? Primarily because we found out that when they were sort of testing the AI modules, the path that had been selected was not the most optimal path. They did not really use that expertise and the experience and intuition, a combination of all of these, to really lead the AI or the machine in the right path, leading to a very dramatic decline in the overall performance numbers. We were able to sort of bring it back to level, and that campaign is now doing well. But for those 3 weeks, I can assure you, it was a challenge. It was a massive challenge. So that's the reason it's very important for me to keep on emphasizing this, that expert judgment ensures that machine is acting on the right path and you don't experience a sudden drop in performance. Because in many cases, if you don't know what to do, it can sort of lead into a downward spiral, and you can sort of blow off a lot of your budget and see a massive dip in performances very quickly as well. So a positive can be a massive positive, while a negative can be a massive negative as well. So that's where use your judgment with a lot of caution. Now, we have talked about as to what one of the challenges are. But having said that, I also started this presentation segment by mentioning that we are seeing a massive increase in the overall revenues. So I really wanted to share with you through the example of one of our clients, Circa Lighting. They're a premier lighting retailer headquartered in Savannah, Georgia. And this is basically their case study. So again, the combination of both the right path or the expert judgment plus the power of AI drove 75% increase in ROI for Circa Lighting. Before we start, a little bit about Circa Lighting, they are a premier retailer of lighting products, headquartered in Savannah, Georgia. Again, have been in the online space for quite some amount of time. I mean, their segment, customer segment, is normally affluent Americans who are primarily sort of living in the coast, who sort of tend to buy significantly from Circa Lighting. So when we started building the AI campaign, before that, we really had to take a context as to where things are, because you're looking at AI to improve what pre-AI campaign performance was. And Circa Lighting, again, these are some of the numbers that were there. As you can see, I mean, we had already scaled up their campaign substantially. That it was generating more than 300% in terms of revenue growth in the 3 years. It was an incredible growth story. So we were really applying AI with this sort of a foundation or a context when the actual campaign management or performance optimization or our own standard technology-based bidding, etc., had led them already to substantial success. We challenged AI, said that how much more can we do? To do that, we did the following things. The first thing, we define the high value customer persona for circle lighting. Very important, right? Because to decide a path that you will follow, decide a particular strategic course of action you would follow, you really have to decide as to who's your core customer, who's your high value customer. So using our proprietary tool Elixir Insights, we are able to track the customer journey and build these high value customer persona. Also using their internal numbers, we were able to build out the high value customer persona. And this is what she looked for circle lighting. She lives mainly in California, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Tennessee. This is where it becomes more specific because where we are sort of using our own technology, Elixir Insights, to find out. She uses long tail specific and intent driven search queries, which are of the length of between 4 to 7 keywords while searching. So she knows what she wants, and she is sort of likely to type in a longer search query to sort of find out. She completes purchases mainly on Mondays, but buys the more expensive items on Wednesdays. She falls in the top 20% of household income. If you really look at the overall US Census data, she would be in the top 20%. She takes time before buying. It's understandably an expensive product, a premium product, and as a result of which the overall purchase time can be anywhere between 3 to 7 days. We call this in the very technical term something called latency. Latency is the time between the first click on a Google ad or maybe sort of landing on the website and the actual purchase being made. She visits the site between this time, 3 to 7 days. She visits the site 7 to 11 times prior to completing it. So she is doing a lot of research, finding out, considering different options and so on. This group is mostly women in the age group of 35 to 44. She completes the purchase mostly between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. So again, if you really connect that, she mostly completes the purchase on Mondays. And when she completes the purchase, it is most likely to be between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. So around lunchtime, roughly. She's mostly a luxury shopper. She also is a business traveler. She travels quite extensively. And she's also a home decor enthusiast who loves to shop in stores. Very important insights. Now, I must mention that all of these insights that we are saying, it's very important for you to define your customers well. Whether you are sort of using any channel, whether it be sort of Facebook, we do a fair amount of Facebook for circle lighting, whether it is SEO channels, anything. I think a marketing 101 is always start by defining who the high value customer is. Because then, unless until you do that, what strategic direction will you sort of take, right? You can go into a strategic direction chasing probably a non-high value customer and end up spending a lot of money, not very efficiently. And the last part is she uses about 2.2 devices. She probably sort of does a lot of this browsing pattern, or let us say search, shop, and buy pattern on her desktop, most likely to be Mac in this case, and also on her tablet as well. Again, most likely to be iPad as well as phone also. But interestingly, we found is still more likely to purchase using a computer, primarily because I think again we have something to. I think it's more of the psychology of buying a very expensive product. When I say expensive, about $1,500 plus per item is the average order value. So when you're looking at sort of buying that level of an expensive product, I mean, people still prefer to use a computer to really sort of make the purchase or complete the purchase, I should say. So first of all, step one, when you are going to do anything on the AI, start by defining the high value customer persona. All of these points are important. Using our own tool, we are able to find out the data points for many other factors as well. But once you have really defined that, then you sort of move on to very specific things. Again, this is a very dense slide, so I'll not really spend too much time on this part. But overall, I think the impact that we were able to get, the adoption percentage was less than 10% about in the month of January or February 2018, and currently 62% of the paid search revenue for circle lighting is coming only through the modern search module. So what have we done? The first of all, we have really defined the high value customer persona. And I would again very clearly mention it's not really only one persona. There are about 5 different personas which are applicable for circle lighting's brand. In certain cases, we work with some large companies which are very complex. I mean, for example, for Lenovo, we have about 47 different customer personas, and each one is a different path and a direction. So again, I'll keep on emphasizing the importance of taking that right strategic path based on as to who's your high value customer persona that you really want to attract and win. So from the smart bidding, again with human manipulations, we were able to drive, significantly higher, 154% higher CTR. The CPCs went down and ROS. We were able to do that because we led them in the right path. The same for dynamic search ads. Again, we sort of beat the industry by 200% for this campaign type. And when I say 200%, this is per the industry records which are sort of brought up by Google. Right? So what happened? How did we really beat the industry by 200%? What were others doing and what were we doing differently compared to that? So that is where I think the judgment or the expertise part comes in. And then you have the responsive search ads, which is coming up with those combinations of the most optimal ad copy combinations for each individual audience type so that you are able to win maximum percentage of audiences. Then we had this would be more on the audience side as well, new detailed demographic targeting, customer match, smart display campaigns, Gmail ads, and so on. But I think the purpose of this slide is I will not really go very deep into each one of them. But the idea was, again, if once you are able to set it up in the right way, the numbers can be extraordinary. As you can see, just look at that line which has audience maximization around site visitors. You would see that the traffic went up by 4,000%. And I'm telling you, this is not suddenly out of nowhere. I have already shared with you in the three and a half years that we have worked with Sakami. Before we even started up this thing, we were in a very strong platform because the entire account was growing dramatically. But those are the numbers that you probably cannot achieve only through human judgment. You really have to get the prediction machines to work for you. You really have to open up the space using the power of modern search or AI so as to be able to get to those extraordinary numbers as such. The impact of modern search campaigns, specifically when you talk about the audience, the ROI, as I mentioned earlier, went up by about 75%. The click-through rates were again through the roof. So how does this work? So in a very simplistic sense, let us talk about the audience campaigns. So earlier, through the different targeting mechanism, you are already, once you have defined the high-value customer, you are able to set campaigns around each high-value customer persona. Now, if you really do it manually, you probably would have an X number of potential customers that you can really attract or get them to buy from your website. That is where the prediction machines or the audience, the smart campaign optimization, the audience optimization really sort of comes in. Once you have really defined those variables very granularly, who is the high value customer, what is the ROS per unique individual segment, what is the overall ad copy messaging that you would ideally sort of want to share with that segment, and then you set it up with the smart bidding algorithms. Suddenly you are able to see as to how we are able to not only extract efficiency from those campaigns, but how essentially the audience maximization algorithms, which are the AI algorithms again that Google has developed, helps you to expand the pie. Suddenly the addressable universe grows from maybe 10 to 100 or even 1,000. Now these are the customers who probably you didn't even know that existed. And the way that Google is able to find out is by relying on multiple signals. Remember that the big data slide that I shared with you? There are so many signals that we don't even know that Google has access to. Just a simple example, let us say they have access to the weather conditions. They have access to not only the device type, but hour of the day, but they have access to a lot of information about that instantaneous buying decision as well as more. When I say more, they also have access to what are these same customers or these same shoppers beyond purchasing on Circa Lighting. What are the other websites that they are engaging with? What are they doing on those websites? And there is something called an affinity audience which sort of matches. If someone is sort of probably more of a luxury shopper, she may be a high likelihood of being a target for this particular segment as well. So it is doing those affinity audiences, the in-market audiences, etc., etc. Now, in-market audiences is someone who has expressed an interest in terms of making a purchase like this. So those are the signals where it is going just beyond your business, does specifically your account numbers and so on, and expanding the pie suddenly. As I mentioned, suddenly you had an addressable universe which you thought was 10 people. Now it has become suddenly 100 people, 1,000 people. And that is an advantage when you have really led Google in the right path. You have really set up the campaigns well, and you have defined the high value customers well. You have set the ROAS thing, and then you select as to which algorithm should we even be selecting. What is the most optimal algorithm which would make the maximum sense? Should I really apply the TROS or target ROS as the key goal, or should I look at the TCPC as the key goal, or should I look at the T maximize conversion as the very goal? So I think all these are the judgmental part, and then when you have set up the repetitive work as well as the expansion work, I think AI is able to do it phenomenally well. Now, I just try to sort of wrap up with a list of best practices which can be there. Now, all of these best practices will help you to improve your judgment when you are setting up an AI campaign or an audience maximization campaign. They are practices that we have developed, as I mentioned, over the last 18 to 24 months, working with a wide range of customers. And this will really help you set up and really run the AI algorithms. If you need help, we are more than happy to sort of help you out on that. But these are some of the best practices. You can also download this checklist. I'll sort of get to a link right after this. So test all the audience types, because first of all, you'll have the high value customer persona, but at the same time, maybe there are certain audience types that you don't really have at this point in time. So testing constantly is very important so as to find out the various types of high value customer persona. So the entire concept is every business doesn't have just one high value customer persona. They probably have 5, 10, as I mentioned in case of Lenovo, 47 different high value customer personas. So have you identified all these high value customer personas is a big question. The second part is allocate spend to focus on the top performing segments. Again, that's a more of a judgmental part. How much money should you invest in each one of these segments, right? How much money should you invest in each one of the high value customer segments? And so you are essentially training or giving that information to that algorithm to start working. So you are really trying to make that algorithm, guide that algorithm in the way that sort of optimizes the overall account structure. You have to determine if you really need an audience layer versus standalone targeting. So is this high value customer segment so big that you really want to have a separate campaign built entirely around it? Or should it be just an audience layer where it sort of filters out anything which is not in line? You can test combined audiences as well. So suppose there are two audience segments. Is there an intersection? So think of almost like a Venn diagram, right? Two circles intersecting, and the intersection point, I think we have found to be exceptionally helpful. But that can come through a process that really you have to implement, which is rapid testing. Unless until you test, you'll never be able to find out the intersection point. What is that customer segment 1, customer segment 2, what point in time do they intersect and so on? So again, you are using the power of human insight, more of, in this case, testing and the insight that you are able to get out of this testing. Again, the human judgment becomes important. Apply smart bidding with select audiences to maximize the impact of, again, don't apply smart bidding everywhere. I'll give you a simple example. Suppose you are running a seasonal campaign. So we have Mother's Day coming up, right? Now, effectively, any AI algorithm to run requires a sizable chunk of data. And that's called the input data. And then the AI learns, which is typically there is a feedback loop, as I showed you. That's called the feedback data. And the third component is where the human judgment, you are trying to train the AI algorithm. That's called the training data, right? So when you talk about data, there are 3 types of data: input data, feedback data, and training data, right? Now, in this situation, for seasonal campaigns, you do not have adequate time probably to run AI or any audience maximization campaigns, primarily because it's a limited time, and during a seasonal promotion like Mother's Day, or let us say Valentine's Day, or during the holiday season, let us say around Black Friday, the promotion keeps changing so dramatically and so quickly. The technology does not get enough time to get adequate data to act right. So sometimes your numbers, your campaign performance can be completely off the whack if you don't really accept that fact. So AI algorithms are very applicable on steady state campaigns. I won't say steady state campaigns, I would say regular online campaigns. And they are very powerful once they start having enough data and sort of slowly scale up and peak. But for short-term campaigns, very specific short period campaigns, we would definitely recommend exercising caution, or probably in certain cases not applying them at all. And last but not the least, engage in continuous performance testing, because as I mentioned, I tried to highlight by giving that example of the performance dip within 44% dip within a span of 3 weeks. That's substantial. So you have to constantly keep on top and ask a fundamental question: is this working? Is it not working? At the same time, you have to remember that you have to give enough time. if you keep changing every week, then understandably, not only Google's AI, but any AI in the world would not really work for you. So you have to give it adequate time. And we feel that the adequate time is anywhere depending on the size of the data set that you have. But we have, I sort of mentioned, I think during the Cohere 1 conference keynote presentation as well, that the adequate time where we see substantial performance lift happening comes anywhere between around 125 to 130 days after the AI has been applied on a steady state campaign. Because it has enough signals, if enough data points, performance points, and suddenly it can sort of start optimizing as such. So these are some of the best practices. You can go ahead and download the best practices checklist. So we currently have the audience maximization best practices, the ones I shared with you, along with the write-up explaining as to what in detail it is, specifically that you can download from this particular link using this particular link. And I mean, that's what I had in my presentation. We have this month we are celebrating the modern search month because we have had a first-hand experience of success that AI is being able to drive. Obviously, if you are able to direct it in the right way, and we really want to share all of these cases and the best practices with you. So tomorrow, my colleague and our director of paid media, Manish Mohan, would be presenting on the other AI modules, which is more of the automation, the smart bidding component, the creative excellence and measurement. On May 17th, Manish and I would be attending the Google Marketing Live event in San Francisco. So we'll be coming up with the key update that has been historically one of our most well-attended and highly attended events, because this is like fresh from the press. We are the first ones to come out with a webinar on that. And last but not the least, on the May 30th, we have our friends from Bing. We are a Bing Select partner as well, and we have someone from Bing, an expert from Bing, join Manish as well to conduct this webinar as well. But with that, let me open it up for any questions that you may have. Feel free to sort of add it in your text box. I know I have substantially overshot the time, but we felt that this is such an applicable area and something that we have realized so much success. We needed to share these best practices with all of you so that you can really be as successful, or if not more. Thank you.
All right, it looks like our first question comes from Renee. Renee would like to know, with all these new ways artificial intelligence impacts my search marketing, what qualities or skills do you recommend when looking to hire marketers for my team?
Great question, Renee. The first quality, I think, they're definitely the marketer. The fundamental strategic skill set has to be very strong. So when I talk about the strategic skill set, I'm talking about the fundamentals of marketing. Again, let us just cut through all the paid search jargon or the search marketing jargon. Just come. So the person should be able to understand the 4 P's of marketing for your business very well. She should be able to understand as to what are the goals and the objectives for your business. She should really have an experience in running campaigns in your industry or your category, if not sort of running your website. But since you're talking about hiring, she probably wouldn't have experience on your website, maybe a comparable website as such. Because that experiential value would really help someone to build that level of judgment and that competence, which can direct AI in a certain level or AI in a certain way. That's, I think, the first, the experiential value. As I mentioned, I mean, it can work both ways. If someone doesn't have the experiential value and just sort of trying to impose something, then the results can be dramatically bad. And at the same time, when you know the stuff, have experience on this. So that's, I think, one. The second part, which I feel is not only for probably every marketer, every business person, the only formula of success, I emphasize this word only formula, because that's how you really sort of build your judgmental power, or the value of your judgment improves, is through by really being a testing champion at heart. You constantly need to be creative enough to identify different testing hypotheses and testing problems, and constantly keep on testing those problems as such. And then recording the problems, learning from it, and iterating something, and then sort of moving on. So I think those are the fundamental parts, something who has understanding of your business category, the fundamental thing which the AI would not have, so that they are able to guide the AI in the right direction. And secondly, someone who is a tester or an experimenter at heart, who is constantly researching all these numbers, the different points, and finding out the insight. Because the goal of AI is basically AI is going to serve you. And when I say you are the master, only when you're able to guide it down the right path. Otherwise, it can be a massive disservice to you as well. So from that perspective, the only way for you to expand your horizon is through testing and experimentations, learning, and moving on. Yeah.
Okay, we have one more question. This question is from Caitlin. Caitlin would like to know, what are some limitations to the audience targeting options available today?
See, currently, I think that's a great question, Caitlin. I mean, Google has been constantly expanding the audience targeting options. There are some limitations which are based on purely the number of modules which are available. So one of the key things which probably would be caught even in the attribution component, we are seeing that the customer path to purchase is not really linear, right? So there is something on the mobile, as I mentioned, 2.2 devices and so on. So unless and until you are logged in and Google or someone has been able to figure out that this is the same user who is using the multiple devices, in many cases, Google algorithms are still reacting or responding or working on very selective data points. Unless and until you are able to connect together two different device points and the journeys within that, it becomes a selective match. But even selective match is very powerful, as you can see in this situation. Right? So that's, I think, one of the gaps, connecting the different devices in the customer journey around this thing. The second part is something which is a challenge, I think, for every industry and every marketer, are purely the privacy norms which have been sort of logged, right? So there is only so much information you can find out about a particular customer and customer preferences, which is good because you don't really want any advertising to be so creepy that you sort of, and then they are constantly tracking you. But I think the privacy norms are pretty restrictive. The third component which is more of inadvertent. I wouldn't say inadvertent. In many cases, probably it is advertent. In many cases, people tend to refresh or clean up the cookies. And if you are cleaning the cookies or using an ad blocker, there is no way for you to collect or for Google to collect all this information about the audience. And so as a result of which, when I talk about addressable universe, it's important to keep in mind that you're talking about only a subset, and you're not really including any three of these situations that I just mentioned, which is the cross-device connectivity. You're not talking about, let us say, a cookie removal and an ad blocker, and the privacy norm sort of impacted parts in the overall mix. It's probably still a lot smaller than the overall universe.
All right, and this concludes our first day of Modern Search Month. We hope you enjoyed it and found it useful to resolving your real-world solutions. Have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. Take care.